Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend, and Happy New Year. This is our first episode of 2023, and we have quite a show for you. We were just talking about it. There's a lot of sex involved in this episode, but there's also nefarious stuff, which is what we talk about. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. One of us comes up with a creep, and the other one is then tasked to come up with someone who is not a creep. Sonia's going to be talking about a woman, guys. Sometimes we do have women as our creeps. Mm-hmm. It does happen. Who had her own company and has her own creepiness attached to her. But before we get to that, let me just say, we do have a basic Facebook page for the show, but we never use it. It's a place where people go to complain about our language. That's my way of saying we use salty language in this program.
Fuck yeah.
We have a private Facebook group. That's where we are the most interactive. You do have to answer a few questions before you can come in. So please don't tag your friends to do it, because then they don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah. But anyway, yes, you do have to answer some questions, but it's just a nice, safe space where we talk about creeps. We also talk about non-creeps, and we always post pictures of our animals and stuff like that. So it's a fun place. So that's What a Creep podcast. Yes. Ask to join this private Facebook group. We are still on Twitter, as long as Twitter still exists,
as long as it's there.
At CreepPod. And it's because somebody had What a Creep for 10 years and never used it there. Creep. And we're on Insta. I like that one today. We're on Instagram at What a Creep Podcast. Please follow us there. And we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. If you would like some stickers, wherever you want on the planet of Earth, we will send them to you. So just send us an email. That's also a place to send us your suggestions for creeps and non-creeps. Maybe this show will give you some ideas of people we should do in the future. Sonia, do you want to tell them really quickly about the website?
Yes, go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. You shouldn't be afraid to ask, but if you are, you should go to the website. It has links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those links is our show notes, and our show notes have links to all of our sources. It's links and links and links and links. Mm-hmm. We have show notes because we source every single episode. We're not making this shit up. We want to give credit where credit is due. So if you're wondering, where'd she get that? It sounds made up. You should check the show notes, because that's where it is. And there's also a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and face masks and journals and all kinds of awesome shit. You should do it. It's fun. The maybe next year design is always in style. Sadly. So I'm like, get one of those. I'm thinking about getting a new one for myself as well. Do you want to tell? There's also a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon, What a Creep Podcast. I want to thank Sherry, Carrie, Devin, Heather, Nikki, and Shy. All of them just joined or rejoined our Patreon. We are very happy about that. We put out 2 bonus episodes a month. We had a great time last month, thanking every single person. That was a hilarious one.
That was really fun.
But the bonus episodes, we talk about stuff that we don't talk about on the air. Sometimes we have a deeper dive into the subjects we covered. We talk about things in the news, stuff like that. I just told Sonia a story. I'll probably save it for the Patreon page because I don't want to put it out there too much into the world. Yeah. We also put out a newsletter. Sonia just put out the newsletter. She does a great job with that.
Thank you.
And what's the third thing? Oh, the first few seasons of the show, they're right behind the Patreon wall. But here, we understand this. If money is tight, new year, everyone just, if you didn't get laid off, still got bills to pay. If you could just leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, that'd be amazing. And I just want to say thank you to Paige CS, Letven, Gracie Girls Cooks, and Orange Cat Mom. They all left us 5-star reviews in iTunes. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. It helps us find our people.
Yes, it totally helps us find our people. And also, Good Pod, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. If you could just leave a star or whatever, a thumbs up, whatever the hell they do there.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Whatever their it is.
Whew. So, Sonia, we have a very interesting segment today because you and I, we both first really learned about this subject, I'd say, with this documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about it?
Yes, we are going to be talking about Nicole Daedone. She is the founder of OneTaste. I'm going to list out my sources here first. First is the documentary where I discovered this story. It's called Orgasm Incorporated, the story of OneTaste. It's on Netflix. It's streaming right now. This is how I learned all of this, which is bananas to me because it's my backyard. Like all of this happened in San Francisco and I live here. Maybe I should read the local news more often. There's also Bloomberg, Jezebel, Los Angeles Magazine, Newsweek, the New York Times, SF Gate, The Sun, and then, of course, our good friends at Wikipedia. All the links will be in our show notes. Trigger warnings for sex abuse and coercion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. Nicole Daedone founded OneTaste, which kind of positioned itself as a wellness company, a practice that she was calling orgasmic meditation, also known as OM. OM. OM.
Got it.
Basically, here's what oming is. Basically, someone strokes a woman and she orgasms for 15 minutes. And this is supposed to bring about world peace or some shit. I don't know. So at one point, OneTaste was making reportedly $12 million a year. Stars like Gwyneth Paltrow, Khloe Kardashian were preaching the virtues of the sex guru, Nicole Daedone. But it all came crashing down when Bloomberg published their article in June 2016 that this was basically, she was little more than the leader of a sex cult. She exploited trauma victims and others who were searching for healing. And like I said, all of this happened in San Francisco, and I didn't even know it. I feel like a real dum-dum sometimes. She's a real creep. So let's start at the beginning. Nicole Daedone grew up in Los Gatos, California. That's in Northern California, not too far from here, actually, maybe 40 miles. And she was raised by her mom. She would later learn that her estranged father died of cancer while in prison after being convicted of molesting 2 young girls.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. He's a creep, too. According to Daedone, at 16, she had sex for the first time, got pregnant, and had an abortion. I only mention that because she mentions it in her stories that when she talks about her life. She studied at San Francisco State University and with a friend opened an art gallery here in the city. And then this is how she got to OneTaste. Bear with me. She often tells the story that she got into yoga and meditation after meeting a man at a party. This would have been 1998. And he practiced something he called contemplative sexuality. I'm putting quotes around that. Contemplative sexuality. And the story changes all the time. Sometimes she says she met a monk or she met a Buddhist. And other times it's like, I just met a cute guy at a party. Story changes all the time. She lies a lot, y'all. So take some of the stuff with a grain of salt, a gigantic grain of salt. So she left the party with this man who might have been Buddhist, a monk, or just some cute guy. And
Just
he
shaved
invited
head in
her.
the bathrobe. Is that like
Maybe. We don't know.
Jeff Bridges? We don't know.
I wish. No. He invited her to lie down naked, and he shined a light on her vagina and then proceeded to describe her quote unquote colors of her vagina. Like, your labia is coral. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then he stroked. Did I warn people? This one's particularly graphic. So
yeah.
Sorry, that should be in the trigger warning, I guess. This one's graphic. He strokes her, not very hard, very lightly or whatever. And she says that she just broke open. She felt pure and clean. And she says the female orgasm is vital for every single woman on the planet. And that she then felt like this is something I need to bring to the world. I'm like, you're not introducing the world to the orgasm, lady.
No,
Whatever. Anyway.
but I don't agree. But I do agree with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's important. But no, she didn't make up something.
It's important. It's important, but
Right.
you didn't discover the orgasm.
No.
But okay. So after that, she joins a group called the Welcomed Consensus. And they claim to be researchers and instructors of something called the deliberate orgasm, quote unquote, and also like friendship, sensuality, and living pleasurably since 1992. And it's like a commune situation, also known as a quote unquote intentional community. You know, I'm putting that in quotes too. Welcomed Consensus is actually based on another like quote unquote intentional community in Northern California called the Lafayette Morehouse. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
I have only vaguely heard of this. So that one was founded in the 60s by a man named Victor Barranco, and Rolling Stone did a big story on this, and it turned out he was like a former used car salesman and peddled like phony jewelry and stuff like that. He founded this community, and it was all about living their like sensual lifestyle. Lafayette Morehouse here in the Bay Area is also known as the Purple People because all their houses are purple. Like they travel in like limos and like big like vans and stuff, and they're all purple.
What?
To show people that they're a community. This is the thing. Like they're the purple people.
So is this like that one that was up in Oregon? Is that where I'm thinking of? There was that commune that was up Oregon or Washington State.
Oh, are you thinking of the Wild Wild Country?
Yes.
That's right. No, this isn't like that. And it's still there now. And they're like they've rebranded themselves as like more university, and supposedly they offer PhDs in sensuality and lifestyle and all this stuff. Whatever. You do you, boo.
Right.
But if they're hurting people, like it needs to come out, and I'm sure that there are stories about them, but we're not doing a story on them today. So Daedone actually lived with the Welcome Consensus for like 2 years. And she spent some time at the Lafayette Morehouse as well. And apparently she actually approached the founder and asked to be his successor. And he was like, no, thanks. And this is probably because Morehouse and Welcomed Consensus, they don't really have that desire to go mainstream. Like they're not looking to be Goop, right? Or before Goop was a thing, I should say. And she's like, no, like we need to share this with the world. So she took what she learned from this group and kind of rebranded it and created her own group that she planned to take public. So in 2004, she founded OneTaste, which I was like, it's a gross name. It's such a gross name.
Ugh.
I don't understand. And she took the idea of the, contemplative sexuality and like gave it a new name and called it orgasmic meditation, also known as OM, right?
Okay.
So an OM is a way, quote unquote, a way to make orgasm, connection, and sensuality sustainable. I don't even fucking know what that means, but whatever. It's on their website. And the whole thing is like a woman lies down, she butterflies her legs, and usually a fully clothed man sits beside her. He sets a timer, and he's wearing gloves, and he puts like lubricant on the gloves, and then he strokes with the goal of giving a woman a 15-minute orgasm. Sounds really long, just saying. So originally she called this the OneTaste Urban Retreat. And it started in a loft building in the South of Market neighborhood in San Francisco.
Soma.
And for people who, in Soma, exactly. And this is where a lot of internet startups were, because the rent then was still affordable. It is not anymore.
No.
No. Everywhere in San Francisco is stupid expensive now. I think we have like maybe 2 neighborhoods left with reasonable and I'm going to put reasonable in quotes,
Mm-hmm.
rent. Anyway, so that loft like quickly like filled up. There were like around like 50 men and women, all in their like late 20s, early 30s, living there. And they're all oming 2 or 3 times a day for research. I'm putting research in quotes. There's a lot of quotes here, y'all. They like showered communally, everything all open, like no fucking walls or doors,
No privacy.
just no privacy.
Ugh.
So as the OneTaste started to get more popular, they started opening more of these Ohm houses, and they usually filled up with like 50 people, and it's just like people just fucking masturbating all the time. Basically, Ohming is masturbating. You're like, or someone's masturbating you, or whatever, however you want to call it. So like these houses grow. There's more and more of them popping up all over the country. And here's what the houses were kind of like. So it's like every morning at 7 a.m., they would wake up and they would convene for 2 rounds of Ohm. Again, remember what Ohm is. They would even switch partners, midway. They would do something called a fear inventory, which I guess is inspired by Alcoholics Anonymous. And you like write out and share your worries with someone. Anybody said any kind of doubts about OneTaste, like they were usually reported to management to be like dealt with, because you're not allowed to have negative feelings about OneTaste. They all did Bikram yoga. We did a whole episode about Bikram.
We did.
By the way, like Bikram yoga now, they still call it Bikram yoga, but it's really it's hot yoga, and it's like a set thing. Like it's not even really associated with him anymore. It's like an alternative word for like hot yoga, basically. But at the time, it was probably associated with him, because we're talking
it was
early 2000s at this point. So Bikram yoga, they cook, they clean, and then they would all spend like several hours like making sales calls. They would like sit around a big like table together and make sales calls, and then they would track their progress with Salesforce. I was like, how professional, Salesforce. And then they would have an afternoon round of Ohm. And then they would run like sessions in the evening, like public sessions, like talks and classes and all kinds of stuff like that. People would usually start by volunteering at events, and that would lead to them working full time in sales. Former staffers would say that they were trained to target young, beautiful women and awkward, wealthy tech guys.
There's a lot of both.
And by the way, and there were
area.
First of all, like we have an abundance of awkward, wealthy tech guys here in San Francisco. It's like one of our natural resources here, but especially in the early 2000s as tech grew here, like we had so many of those. OneTaste would set up booths at like life hacking conferences, and like, there were all these like startup like events, and they would set up booths there, and there were like, fucking all night dance parties, and they would set up their booths outside the dance parties, and they would have like shirts and things that say like the pussy knows.
Oh, no.
And how's your orgasm, and all this stuff. It's like whatever. They're so awesome and progress. I tell you, if I saw this, I would have just kept fucking walking, but that's fine. That's me. And maybe I'm a prude. The people who would volunteer at these and then maybe start working for them, they would work long hours. They would be exhausted, and if they would complain, this is a lot, I'm tired, you don't pay me a lot, whatever, they would be told to own more. Like, hey, why don't you go fucking masturbate? That'll fix it. Because orgasms fix everything. So for years, like this company seemed to do very well in its communes, like in their little bubble, right? They're here in San Francisco. Everything's very progressive here, and they have their little communes and everything's fine, whatever. But then in 2009, the New York Times puts OneTaste on the front page of their style section, and like it just fucking blows up. Interest increased, membership increased, and they like started upping their prices, and like the people who were working for them were expected to work even more. some of the stuff that they were offering was like an introductory workshop that was like $195. I'm like, all right, that's not that outrageous, I guess. Then there's like a week-long quote unquote urban monk program, and that was $2,000.
I'm sorry.
The urban monk reminds me of the urban sombrero from Seinfeld.
Jesus Christ. Okay. That's the John Travolta movie I've yet to see.
Urban
Looking
monk.
for love.
And then you could train to become a certified OM coach. Oh my God. Hey, ladies, I'm a certified OM
all
coach.
these MLMs, like all these things. It's the same thing. Do this for free, and then we'll make you a coach, and then you just get your own clients. And
it totally is, but it's about sex. So you could become a certified coach, but it costs you $6,000, and then on top of, or $16,000, sorry, and then on top of that, there's like how-to DVDs, their own special lubricant, special pillows that you're supposed to buy to build nests for women to like butterfly their legs open. Like, and then you could have like long-term memberships, which could be as high as like $60,000 a year. And it just grew from there. Wow. So that happened in 2009. In 2011, Daedone gives a TEDx talk. And that was here in San Francisco, and it was called like, it was like the female orgasm, regenerative human technology. Once again, orgasms fix everything. They're great and all, by the way. I'm not shitting on orgasms. They're great.
No, they are, but like
they're not the answer to everything.
No.
She wrote a book that like that year, the following year, and it was called Slow Sex, the Art and Craft of the Female Orgasm. And that's when she got the Goop bump, because then Paltrow's like, this is great. This is a great book. And when like the queen of vaginas is like, this is a great book, buy it. So sales went up for that, and people bought Gwyneth Paltrow's fucking candles that smell like her vagina or whatever. And then like Khloe Kardashian also like touted it on like her Instagram and stuff. And the Kardashians are
millions of followers.
And then after that, she gave a speech at South by Southwest called The Female Orgasm. She took the one from the TED Talk and did it at South by Southwest, which is also a huge platform. So by this time, OneTaste is fully mainstream. Like, it's a thing. And it's being positioned as sexuality, like wellness, that sort of thing. It's certainly not being pushed as a cult or anything. It's like another kind of, it's like dirty yoga or whatever, So it's super mainstream. It's a brand. This is when they're starting to make like 12 million a year. And then they're opening like other centers now. They had like some in like 9 cities, and they're all over the world. It's like New York, San Francisco, London, like all over. And as the organization went mainstream, oming became like the thing in the company to work out any conflict or negative feeling. So according to Daedone, the more one omed, again, like sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, you were able to like discharge your trauma, is what she was telling people. Like, yeah. So all these people who are dealing with serious shit are being told like,
jack off more.
Yeah, orgasms will help you. And so this is targeting women, right? Because it's the women that are having the orgasms. And then for men, it's like, this will help you. You're helping women, basically. It's like, and then men would be like, totally help me. Like, I'm able to focus better at work because I'm able to focus on a clitoris. And like, it's whatever. I'm a child because I'm just like, okay, whatever. What? No. Okay. As like the organization appears to be like thriving on the outside, like, but things on the inside were like not going very well. So like one former employee, he joined in 2012. He was like 24 years old. He said he worked for the company for 2 years. And when he left, he owed $30,000 on his credit card.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And at one point he complained that he and his coworkers hadn't been paid in 2 months, and he was publicly shamed for only caring about money. It's so shitty. Another former employee said that her and her husband left the organization. They met at OneTaste and were married. They had $20,000 in debt. They spent over $150K on classes and retreats. And like multiple people have said that staffers were often encouraged to take out additional credit cards to cover the costs of these retreats and classes. So in case this isn't, I'm not spelling it out enough, like you could work for OneTaste, but that didn't mean the classes and retreats were free.
That's how Scientology works.
Yes,
Yeah.
you pay. You have to pay still. You might work the event, but if you want to take any of the classes, you got to pay. And so they would take out credit cards to do it. And credit cards are fucking dangerous, man.
They are.
Because they don't feel like real money until you've maxed it out and you have to pay that shit off. Then all of a sudden it feels like money. They're scary. Be careful with your credit cards, y'all. Former members also said that it started to feel like a prostitution ring where managers were frequently like ordering staff members to engage in sex with customers. There was a lot of gender imbalance at these workshops. They seemed to really appeal to men. Men would come to these because they're like, I want to be around these women that are into this.
Especially if you're awkward and you don't date very well and you don't know how to, you have no game, like talking games.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm going to be able to do this really well. So
yeah, well, and it also, dudes are like, I want to get laid. I'm going to go to the thing with, and there's these
and the odds are
workshops
good.
or with these, and the odds are good that these are women that want to fuck.
They'll be DTF,
right? That's
right?
where they're going, yeah. So there was constantly like a gender imbalance where it was like a lot of men and not enough women. Female staffers were then like pressured into volunteering themselves for like demonstrations or partnering up with these creepy men. I shouldn't say creepy men. They might be fine, but these men in these workshops for
very
oming
intimate
sessions.
settings. Yeah.
Yes, they're being bullied into
Sex work.
Remember what? Oh, yeah, into sex work.
And they're not getting
really
the benefit from it. Like they're not.
Yes.
Right.
All of that's happening. And then on top of that, like Daedone is like saying like really problematic, fucked up shit. And it's recorded. Like this isn't even debatable that she said these things. She said these things. She would talk about sexual violence and she would like encourage like no value judgments towards the perpetrators of these things, like towards rape. She described sexual predators, and these are quotes, as love bugs and telling rape victims to own their experience. This is a quote, if you want to know the real way to deflect rape, it is to turn on 100% because then there is nothing to rape.
Oh, Jesus.
What she's saying here is sit back and enjoy the ride.
Well, yeah, just reframe the narrative.
Yes. It's fucked up.
And
this is 100% a real thing she said. Like it's on tape. It's in the documentary. It's in multiple things. Like you can see it. She also was filmed telling an audience, that they have, she says this. So you know how we have the t-shirts powered by orgasm? I think our new shirt should be, I got raped and all I got was a victim story.
Oh my fucking God.
What a fucking creep.
How does anybody sit there? But then I guess like you pay all this money and the thing is time. They just suck you in these things, lectures for hours. So I guess after a while you're like, well, it has to be worth something. It was in Goop, and I know other people who spend 15 grand. So maybe I'm hearing this wrong, or maybe she's going to turn the ship around some way, and then she doesn't.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like you've been duped. You want to feel like you haven't wasted your time
or money. Yeah, you don't want to feel like you've been ripped off. Nobody does.
And one of these said that she didn't think her father, who was again charged with 52 counts of child molestation.
Oh my, sorry.
Yeah.
52?
Yeah.
Oh,
She
my
says he's
God.
not a bad person. He
Yeah,
just
he
has
is.
urges. It's men's inner beast. It's not their fault. They just have inner beasts, y'all. That's all.
Does Jordan Peterson know about her?
They should date.
Yeah.
One former member said she was sexually assaulted by multiple men and she was told to like ignore it. There's a scene in the documentary where she has sent an email to her sister and her sister read the email because she didn't even want to like be on camera. And it said like, I was reprimanded afterwards for showing fear in my face and that a true turned on woman would have taken this beast's cry for help with grace and love. It's fucking gross.
Wow.
Gross. I put her on the list just for that shit alone. Like, it's so fucked up. She had like a cult-like power over her followers. This is very Nexium sounding to me. And she would strongly suggest for people to pair off romantically, and they would do it. I mentioned the couple earlier that got married at one. These were people that like, she was marrying people off and so that they would stay in the organization, you know, because it's like, we're married. This like, they're part of our family now. Like this was like what she would do. There was also multiple cases of domestic violence between the employees and the relationships.
Oh my God.
And if one partner like was like hitting people or like there was one where like an employee was like slapping someone and it's just like referred to like is like letting out their beast, quote unquote,
And not assault.
Not assault. Apparently one executive repeatedly slapped his girlfriend in the headquarters on Market Street in front of like other people. And that person was fired, but then he was later rehired. The organization also taught something that they like to call aversion practice. I'm putting that in quotes. And it's the idea that you gain power and expand your orgasm by performing sexual acts you don't want to do. Or doing them with people you find disgusting. Honestly, I can't believe that aversion practice isn't something that like a gross dude came up with. Like, hey, even people you find disgusting like me, you should fuck me. Yeah. Like, it's so ew. And so like, this is an interview in the documentary too. And a former employee said he was fighting with another employee. They just didn't get along at work. Like you do, by the way. Sometimes there's people I don't get along with at work. They were told they had to leave work and they couldn't come back until they slept together.
Ooh.
Could you imagine? That's fucking gross.
No.
It's a workplace. This is a work. I know it's like a weird workplace, but still, like
It's a workplace.
You shouldn't have to fuck people you don't like to keep your job. This employee said that sometimes they would assign someone to be your sex manager for the week. And like that sex manager would go on Tinder and like line up people for you to sleep with. Like do all the texting, tell you who to meet and when. You know, sex was always the solution to like every problem. Like,
Yeah.
you just need to fuck.
But it's also,
And-
but it's also building up like a, I don't know, you're building up these things that you can embarrass somebody with later, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So occasionally, like people would get out. So in 2015, OneTaste actually had to pay a 6-figure settlement to a former employee because she was sexually assaulted and harassed. Also around this time is when she started doing the terrible thing that cult leaders do, which is, I'm going to turn this into a religion so that she doesn't have to pay taxes. Right. We talked about this in the Focus on the Family episode too. Like these shitty organizations try to declare themselves as religion so they don't have to pay taxes anymore.
Yeah, they keep all that money and they can afford more lawyers and they can afford more lawsuits.
Yes, and they can then pay people to shut up and be quiet and like not tell their
Or
stories,
intimidate
pay
people.
victims off. Yes, exactly. So she wants to like start her religion, and she starts running like a series of events that she's calling like magic school. And it's like she would pick her inner circle, and she declared them priests and priestesses of the orgasm, and they would like heal the world through orgasm. And there's like
Priest of orgasm, poo.
orgasm.
I just picture like John Poo. I'm the priest of the orgasm.
I'm the priest of the orgasm. Here's my card. There's just like a ceremony with all these fucking robes and snakes and shit. It's so
Sure. Why not?
whatever. And she said, like, fully, like, quotes, like, I want to start a religion. But you can't sell God. This is what she said, because you can get God on Amazon. What I'm selling is sex, because you still can't get that. So by 2018, more than 35,000 people have attended events. There's like 16,000 have taken classes and workshops. They have like 1,300 people that took the coaching program, and tens of thousands have mastered the art of the orgasmic meditation, quote unquote. And then in June 2018, Ellen Hewitt wrote an article for Bloomberg, and that's when like everything fucking explodes, right? Because it exposes a lot of what we just talked about. It's like, the allegations from former employees who like talk about it like it's a prostitution ring. They were asked to have sex with clients. Employees were forced to take courses and attend retreats that they couldn't afford. And they had to take out all this debt, all this credit cards, and of course, like OneTaste denies everything. The false light, hand picking, blah, blah, blah. They didn't interview any of our happy customers. By then, the news is out. So 2020, BBC Radio does a podcast called The Orgasm Cult, and it digs even deeper. And that's when they find like even more stories of sales staff being like coerced into having sex with wealthy men to entice them to take the courses. One young woman was forced to have sex with multiple partners and employees, and was told that oming and sleeping with strangers would heal her childhood trauma. Like, it's so fucked up.
Do they use any birth control, or do we know? Or do they use any like, condoms or anything? I wonder, because I think the STD numbers would be through the roof.
Dude, one person gets chlamydia and it's all over. Or fucking herpes or whatever. Yeah. And then... Not shaming people, I'm just saying,
like the numbers, like just right.
Yes. That did not come out in any of the stuff I read, but good, solid question. In 2022, there was the Netflix documentary that I mentioned already, and that's how I came across the story. So where is Nicole now? She sold her stake in OneTaste in 2017, and she said she was going to be writing a book about cancel culture, because of course she is. I've seen no evidence of that book. This was 5 years ago, but she did write one called The Age of Eros, like EROS, and it's like a manifesto. Apparently it's a real book, but you can't get it anywhere but on her website. Like, it's not even on Amazon.
It's self-published or something. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So she also she hired a PR expert, and this is someone who worked for Harvey Weinstein. For a little while, it appeared that Daedone and OneTaste had like parted ways. But just this past November, like, she did another demonstration of oming in New York. She is on their website as the Om creator. And OneTaste has tried to rebrand, because that's how you fix things, right? So if you look up OneTaste, like, you'll probably get a lot of the stories and things about like the Netflix documentary. But now they go by the Institute of Om. And it describes itself, this is from their website, an education company dedicated to helping people increase health, happiness, and connection through orgasmic meditation. They're an education company. Thank you very much. And they just launched their like intro to Om workshop, and they have an app now. I don't know what that app is like, because I'm not gonna
I'm not
fucking put that. I'm not putting that shit on my phone.
Jesus Christ,
No, thank you. And they continue to deny any wrongdoing. So like, you know, the podcast comes out, the documentary's out, and they're just like, you know, at the height of our success, we were canceled by salacious media, you know, by Bloomberg and Vice and BBC and now Netflix. Like, they are canceled. Thanks, cancel culture. You know, I did read that I thought this was very interesting. So several former members of OneTaste are actually suing Netflix right now about the documentary. They're suing because the footage in the documentary, they're saying, was stolen and distributed without their consent. By the way, they're not saying the shit's not true. They're just saying that stuff was supposed to be private. But the documentary director said that all the video is legally obtained and that a lot of it is already public on the OneTaste website itself, or on their YouTube channel, or in past news reports. So like, she's like, we didn't get anything that wasn't already like available somewhere else. But I thought it was interesting that they were suing because the footage they were saying was like an invasion of privacy for them. They're not denying that it's true.
No, but if memory serves, and I watched a lot of stuff since I've seen this documentary, so I could be wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong. But there's footage of a woman being slapped around. There's a lot of moaning and private parts. Like, I think they blurred out, but yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want my hoo-ha. That's my technical name
for sure.
In a documentary.
And and there's just probably the reason why so many of them didn't leave as soon as they could have, right? Because there is this footage there,
right?
That
That's
could
what
be
I'm
used,
saying. Like,
and they would be embarrassed.
Yeah, like the texting to get to make them sleep with people. I'm sure they saved all that, and so they can go in court and say, "Well, they did this. I didn't do it."
Yeah, exactly. So it's just another way of controlling people,
right?
The FBI is currently investigating this company. They're looking into sex trafficking, prostitution, and the violations of. They've got a good case, I think, for labor law for sure. These people were overworked and not paid. The investigation is still ongoing, and there haven't been any charges yet, but that is the latest on that. So that is our creep, Nicole Daedone and OneTaste.
Excellent work, Sonia. For our bonus ep, I'm going to be talking about my tangential relationship to something that happened here. I don't want to, like I said, I'm not going to put on the regular show. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about our not creep this week.
Yeah, let's do a little oming, and then we'll be back.
Mine sounds like a cackle. This may be a case, actually. We may have done this person before. I don't think we have.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But do you remember Dr. Ruth?
Of course.
So what do you remember most about her?
That she was on game shows all the time.
Yeah.
And she would talk about penises and orgasms and
vaginas
safe sex.
and safe sex.
Yes.
She's 4'7", by the way. She's a sprightly thing. Carola Ruth Siegel was born June 4th, 1928 in Wiesenfeld, Germany. She grew up in a Jewish home in Germany in the 1930s. Not an easy time to be a Jewish person or a place. She was 10 years old. Her family sent her away to a school in Switzerland because they were scared what was happening. And unfortunately, this was in 1938. In 1941, both of her parents, turned out, were killed in Auschwitz.
So awful.
She, after her parents died, she lived with relatives, and she fought in the Haganah, she was a trained sniper. And this was she lived in Palestine for a while. She's Israel Palestine had a conflict, had one. But This was the one in 1947 and 1949. She then she almost lost both of her feet, by the way. She was by a bomb and it went off.
Oh my God.
She lost all of her family in the war.
That's so
and
awful.
was sent to live with relatives. She learned to speak several languages, and she went to the Sorbonne in France and got her education. She then came to America. She got her degree at the New School in sociology. She earned a doctorate at the Teachers College at Columbia University in 1970. And she started a private sex practice in the 1970s. And she got married in 1961. She had 2 kids, Manfred Westheimer. That was her husband. And her whole thing was she's about having healthy sexual practices in your life. That sex was a fine thing to have in your life. It should be something joyful. It should be something you look forward to. It can bring people closer together. It's a part of a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship. And you shouldn't be embarrassed about it. And you and I both grew up Catholic, and there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of like, well, you're not going to know this till your wedding night, so why do we teach you anything? And there's a lot of
LOL.
Yeah, keep yourself covered. You know, there's there's places in America, I'm sure around the world, but there's places that are very religious where, you know, there's no dancing allowed, or girls have a very strict dress code.
Just like Footloose.
Just like in Footloose. There's still like sex education is not a guarantee in public education now. There's all kinds of, in America, we're very like, it's strange. Like we're super open culture, but we're also very repressed in some ways.
Yes. And
Dr. Ruth, I remember most, but for me, is that she started a show in New York City. It was called Sexually Speaking. And here was this little German woman, and she went on the air and she talked about fetuses and vaginas. And it was like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night. Everybody listened to it. Because it's 1980, 81. You know, I'm like 10, 11 years old, but she's just like...
There's no internet. There's no internet.
No internet. Maybe you had parents that had like the book, you know, that they would show you, like, this is where babies come from. And maybe you get some sex education, and then maybe just about, hey, girls, you get your period, go to the nurse and find out what you got to do. Like, it's, like I said, sex education just was not. And people turned out, they would call in the show, and her whole thing was she didn't shame anybody.
Right.
And she said things like, masturbation, it's very good. You know, you should do it. Having, you know, this is what you do to pleasure another person. She also, so it takes off. She's 4'7". She has this German accent. She's funny as shit, like very quick, very sharp.
Yes.
She also really aligned herself very early in her career as an ally to the queer community. So when the AIDS crisis started happening, she would go on television, and she would always be going on, and they would have her on to talk about sex and stuff like that. But then people are like, well, isn't it true a lot of gay people are getting AIDS? And she would say, I'm not starting this conversation like that. We're talking about people dying. Let's talk about the important thing. Let's get people healthy. And she said, I am not going to other people. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to treat somebody that they're subhuman just for being who they are, because I know how that feels. And she's recalling her experience. So she's been a sex therapist since then. She's won every kind of award you can imagine. She's still with us. She's 94 years old. There's a documentary about her on Hulu. They asked her, you know, what is your biggest joy? And she said, I have 2 grandchildren. That's where, you know, and then she said she takes a lot of pride in being someone who helped bring joy to other people and help them and healthy activities to people.
Yes.
And her stuff is all about, obviously it's consent, and it's about, but it's also just like sex should be fun, and it should be not something people should be ashamed to talk about. And she just really helped to take that away. There's just something about her that made people feel comfortable and safe. And that's the kind of person.
She totally did.
Oh, absolutely. Especially the AIDS crisis. There was so much hate that was going on in the media. And I remember like in the mid 80s, especially, it's just like, well, who gets it? And, you know, why should we care? Really horrible. And she just would not play that shit because she'd been through this. You know, she'd been through what it's like to be targeted, and she absolutely refused to do that. And she has an excellent reputation. Still with us. She's had a million TV series, and talk shows. She still does interviews. She still does podcasts. She has the same apartment she's had for over 50 years.
Oh my God,
York.
that's amazing.
She's amazing. She's incredible. She's amazing. And that's our not creep this week. Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Such a good pick. Such a good pick. That's an amazing pick.
We love her.
We do.
We do. That's our show this week. And if you like the sound of our voices, we co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And Sonia, what are we going to be dorking out about this next episode?
Private Benjamin.
Yay!
I haven't seen this movie in a very long time, but we both watched Glass Onion, The Knives Out Mystery, and Kate Hudson reminded us so much of her mother, Goldie Hawn, in that movie. And I think we also got a listener request for Private Benjamin.
I'm sure we did at some point.
Like, kind of came together, and I was like, great, let's do Private Benjamin.
And we'll also offer our recs for movies, because you and I both been watching a lot of movies lately.
Yes.
So that be the next episode. Like I said at the top of the show, all the social media call outs. If you have any ideas, please, we love when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from the Ghostbusters. Send it to one of those social media places. Once again, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. That's our email. Feel free to put a few stars next to us in iTunes. That would be amazing. We totally appreciate that.